Grace and peace. Hello. Hello, everyone. Grace and peace. Happy New Year. It's Dr. Naima Johnston-Bush from The Refreshing Life with Naima. Our goal is to help you to live a life of exuberant joy, powerful prayer, and sincere gratitude. We use music and ministry and education to help you achieve that goal. And we have four pillars, four life values that we stand by. The first is a refreshing life is a life that is intimate with the Lord. A refreshing life is one that has healthy relationship with self and with others. A refreshing life is one that strives to be holistically and physically healthy. And a refreshing life is one, of course, where you pursue with abandon your God-given calling, gifts, dreams, desires, whatever the Lord has placed you here to do. And so those are our four values, and everything we do ministry-wise are based around those things. And so I'm starting a new series on Mondays. I do Worship Wednesdays and I do Thoughtful Thursdays. And so on Mondays, I'm going to be doing Make It Happen Monday, and I'm going to be talking about pursuing your God-given dream. And I do actually have a book. You can find it on Amazon. It's called Go With What You Got, Dr. Nay's Guide to Develop Your Dream, Pursue Your Passion, and Accomplish God's Will for Your Life. And you can find it on Amazon, Dr. Naima Johnston-Bush. Actually, I think it might be just Naima Johnston because I wrote it before I was married. And so you can get that on Amazon if you're interested. I want to welcome everyone who's going to be listening to this later. Welcome to all the replay viewers. Feel free to share this with your followers, post it on Twitter. Give me some hearts. Hearts are always appreciated, and sharing is definitely caring. And so I wanted to start addressing this because I know so many people are desiring to build a ministry or to start a business, or you want to see your current ministry or business grow. You have this dream in your heart, a nonprofit or something the Lord has given you to launch, to start. And that is one of the areas that actually the Lord has really blessed me in, to be able to help other people launch their visions. And so I wanted to start talking about that on Mondays. So I'm not going to be on long. I just wanted to start off with encouraging you to go with what you got. And I know you probably are asking, well, what does that mean, to go with what you got? And I just want to welcome again everybody coming in. I can't really see. It's one of those days where the comments are, doing funny things. So feel free to leave a comment or to give hearts or to share, and I will recognize you as I can. So what does it mean to go with what you got? Well, I have been in full-time ministry since 2002. I started in Dayton, Ohio, left my full-time job at Wright State University. I was the Associate Director of Student Life or Student Relations, and so I was in charge of Greek Affairs. Happy Founders Day to the members of Phi Beta Sigma. I was in Greek Affairs, and I did student organizations and leaderships, community service. I was in charge of retention for students of color, and I also did like a lot of big events like homecoming and Little Sibs weekend and Parents Weekend. I was in charge of those kinds of leadership awards, those leadership programming, that kind of thing. I loved my job. And that's what my background is actually in. I have a master's degree in higher education and student affairs from Ohio State University. I have a PhD from Ohio State in educational policy and leadership as well. So my area of training is actually in the training and development of people. And so, anyway, I love that job. It was like being in college forever. Before that, I was the director of residence life, so I was in charge of the dorms at Ohio Dominican University in Columbus, Ohio. So it was like always, and I lived on campus, so you can imagine what that was like. But it was like always being in college. And so I supervised and chaperoned parties. I went to student conferences. Like I said, I did homecoming and got to sit up in the box because, I was on staff. And I made a really, really good living. And I was on track to actually be a vice president of student affairs. And they make really good money, particularly at private schools. I had a dream of being a university president. I wanted to be the first African-American woman college president at Ohio Wesleyan University, which is my alma mater. I went there for undergrad and got a BA in sociology and women's studies. And what wound up happening was that the Lord had a different plan. And so he called me to go into full-time music ministry. Now, when I was a little girl, I always wanted to be a singer. And somewhere along the lines, I had given up that dream. I had let it go for a number of different reasons. And I just wasn't pursuing it. I sang in the choir. I sang at an occasional student wedding, a family member's wedding, but I wasn't pursuing music ministry. That was it, just singing in the choir at church and singing for people at, special events that I knew and loved. But the Lord began to lay this vision in my heart of this music ministry, and not only of a music ministry, but also a ministry that would do outreach to the community. It would be a Christian coffee house nightclub. And so for a while I had a Christian nightclub called Out the Box in Fairborn, Ohio. And we had live Christian music. We had a pool table, and we had a cafe, and we had all kinds of events there, and did that for a while I was starting off in music ministry. And so I left my job. I left my full-time, good-paying job in 2002 to pursue my ministry full-time. And if I could go back and do it over again, I would really do some things different. I mean, I just would. I would have made sure that I paid off all my bills before I jumped out like that. I would have made sure that I knew exactly when God's timing was. I was a younger Christian at that point in time, and so I just jumped out there. God said do it, and I just jumped out there and did it. And I don't think I spent enough time asking him how, when, where, what, and getting that kind of plan. I just jumped out there and quit my job and went into full-time ministry. And I wound up spending up my retirement within a year, all of my retirement money and the money I put aside. And I did that in recording my first CD. It was a CD called The Everything. My newest CD is called The Deeper Project, but that was Everything was the first CD that I did. And in opening Out the Box Christian Gathering Place, and in just living, because I wasn't making enough money in full-time ministry to sustain myself. And I had a house. I had bought a house, and I had a car, and I had expenses. I had been on a trip to Jamaica and a trip to Disney the year before, and those I was paying that off over time through my credit card. I mean, I just made some really bad choices, and I was tired. I was doing a lot of knocking on doors, and I wasn't finding that I was getting a lot of yeses. And I know now that that was for a number of reasons. One, people didn't really know who I was. Sometimes we think, God has called us to do something, so there's only so much we have to do. At least that's how I was when I first got started. There were a number of things that I didn't do right off the bat because my thought process was, well, God has called me to this, and so he'll just open the doors. And so that's what I sat back for a while and did. And I worked on, building this nightclub, Christian nightclub. And then after a couple years, we couldn't sustain ourselves either. We weren't making enough money there because I didn't really know much about nightclub management. But God is so faithful. The miracles that we saw during the time, the lives that were changed and people were saved. And we had a crowd of young people that came every Thursday night for Christian hardcore music. Yes, Christian hardcore music. I'm talking about that screaming stuff. So there was definitely fruit, but on my end, I was definitely struggling, and I was praying, and I was asking the Lord why, and it didn't seem like I was getting any answers. And then I got caught in the middle of some personal issues, and then I fell in love with this man, and he wasn't in love with me, and I was devastated, had this heartbreak. And now, I thank the Lord that relationship didn't work out, because now I'm married to my husband, and he is the best ever. And so I was going through all of this stuff, and I had to make a choice, continue in full-time ministry or save my house, because I could have saved my house, but I didn't want to go back into a situation where I still wasn't making enough money to sustain it. It was a pretty big house, and it was just me and my little chihuahua at the time. So I wound up moving into small apartment and that I could better care for and sustain. And it was just rough. Those first 7 years or so of ministry were really rough. And I remember back in, I think it was 2008, and I left my job in 2002. It was 2007, 2008. I remember thinking, I just need to quit. I am obviously wrong. I've gotten this whole thing wrong. I just need to quit. And I was so isolated because most of my friends were not in full-time ministry. They worked, and so I could never see them. And I was traveling all across the country. At that time, there were a lot of really small Christian coffee houses that were up and running. And so I would do these concerts on Saturday night at these small Christian coffee houses, and then maybe do a church on Sunday morning, lead worship, or maybe talk for the women's group. And sometimes I would get offerings, and it would be like, how am I going to get home? Lord, help me. I remember one time I went and did this concert, and they gave me an offering of, it was like $6. It was a $6 offering. And they had talked all night about how they needed to change the roof, get the roof fixed. And it wasn't anybody there. I mean, it was like maybe 6 people in the crowd, and the offering was like $6. And I was like, wow. Now, I don't know if the offering was really $6 or that's just what they gave to me and said. I believe that that's what the offering was. And so my first thought was, I'm just going to give them this $6 back and tell them to put it towards their little roof fund. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me. He was like, you better take that $6 and go get yourself a meal from McDonald's and put $3 worth of gas in the car. And so that is what I did. And that got me home and fed me dinner. But I was having all these long drawn out trips, and it was just like, wow. So I always tell people, when they're going into full-time ministry, to count the cost. Count the cost. Maybe you won't have those experiences like I had if you do it and plan it wisely and you already have a following. But I didn't have anybody calling me. I was just knocking on doors. So I was very, very tired after, 6 or 7 years. And I remember I had went to this event, and I couldn't get there. The traffic was so bad, and I wound up spending all this time in traffic, and I needed the money for a bill that was due the next week or something. And I just was laying in the bed, and I was like, Lord, I just think that I need to quit. I need to quit, and I need to go back into full-time education. I know I can get a job, with my credentials. I know that somebody will pay me well. I enjoyed that life. I ministered to the youth and to the young adults, and I said, you were Lord, and I did a lot of ministry work. I saw the college campus as a mission field. I advised Campus Crusade for Christ while I was there. I did a lot of, great things, and I could have gone back to that, But when I put it out there to the Lord, I said, Lord, I'm ready to quit. I think I've made a mistake. Maybe I was just following my own mind and not what you called me to do. I heard in my mind Judges chapter 6. And I remember thinking, Judges chapter 6? What is that? Because it wasn't something that I had read recently. And this is a true example that when you study your Bible and you hide the word in your heart, God will definitely bring it back to your remembrance when you need it. Okay, because I had read Judges a number of times, but I hadn't read it lately when that happened. And so I was like, Judges chapter 6, what is that about? And so I thought it was a fluke. I thought it was something that my mind was making up. But nevertheless, I got up and I opened up my Bible and I began to read Judges chapter 6. And I was actually confronted with the story of Gideon. Now, maybe you don't know the story of Gideon, but the verse that stood out in particular was verse 14, and it says, Then the Lord replied to him and said, Go with the strength you have and rescue Israel from the Midianites. I am sending you. Now, the thing that was going on with me was I was telling the Lord that I was ready to quit. I was tired. I didn't have anything I needed. I didn't have a support system. I didn't have people knocking on my door asking me to come. I didn't have, some of the tools that I thought I needed, like a band or backup singers, or, I didn't have enough money to do a new project, CD project. I didn't have all of this. I didn't have the money to hire a publicist or an assistant to help me make these phone calls and to grow and develop my ministry. I didn't have any of that. And the story of Gideon, Israel is being oppressed by the Midianites, and the Lord appears to Gideon. This, of course, is the nutshell version. The Lord appears to Gideon and tells him to go and to fight them, to overtake them. And Gideon is like, I can't do that. I don't have what I need. I don't have what I need. So how can I go fight against the Midianites? And then the Lord responds once again in Judges chapter 6 with verse 14, where he says, go with the strength you have. I am sending you. Because if God calls you to go, you have what you need. Even if it doesn't feel like you have what you need, because he is sending you, he goes with you. And he goes on to say that, I will go with you. And if God is going to go with you to pursue the thing he's called you to do, then you can't give up. You can't be afraid. You can't let go. You can't stop. So needless to say, after I had that encounter with the Holy Spirit, I didn't quit. I didn't give up. I went back. I reevaluated my music ministry. I reevaluated what I was doing. I spent a lot of time in prayer. I spent a lot of time fasting. I spent a lot of time talking to wisdom, a lot of elders in my life. And I put myself out there even more and began to reach out to people and to network and to connect and to continue to serve and to stop and to ask the Lord if I should go someplace, not just, well, they invited me, so I'm going to go, or, well, this door is open, so I'm going to go. No. And I've even pulled back even more this year with that, because I found that to be, it can be draining to you physically and to your resources. When people call you and ask you to come 200 miles for free because it's a fundraiser, my response, unless I get a clear directive from the Lord, and sometimes he will say go. He will say go. Go ahead and do that. Be a blessing to them. But a lot of times I don't get that release. And so my response is, I'm sure where you are, there are many talented and anointed artists or speakers who can donate their time for free and come and bless your event. If you call me and you're 10 miles up the road and you tell me you have no budget, you're doing a fundraiser because the pastor got, it's the pastor's anniversary and y'all trying to raise money for a new church building. If the Lord, I don't have a problem doing that. I feel like I should do those things because we should help each other build the kingdom. That should be our first priority. But you can't do it to the detriment of yourself. Every time the Lord has told me to go in a situation like that, I have wound up blessed beyond measure. And it was because, he told me to go. And he's kept me, because there have been times and situations where I've gone and he has not. I felt an arrest in my spirit, like, don't go over there, don't do that. And he still kept me, got me there safe, got me there back. And I came back empty-handed, or nobody showed up, or there was some kind of mixed communication, or it was some kind of major problem. And he still kept me because I was trying to be faithful to my word. But, obedience is better than sacrifice. So make sure that you're following the word of the Lord. So I spent, between 2009 and 2015 rebuilding, rebranding, refocusing my ministry. And I saw a tremendous amount of growth to the point where, no, I'm not rich and everybody may not know who I am, but I have a sincere, dedicated, loving group of people. I have a network of churches that call me every year and they take care of me. And that it's growing. More and more people are calling me to be of service to them. And that's my heart's desire, is just really to be of service to God's people. And so I just want to encourage you, to go with what you got. The first rule of ministry building is to remember that God goes with you, and that if God has called you and he goes with you and he goes before you, the way will be made. Make sure that you are listening for his voice. Make sure that you are being obedient to what he is telling you to do, and do not be afraid or talk yourself out of taking a big jump or leap in business or in ministry. Don't talk yourself out of making a big jump or a big leap because you think you don't have enough. I remember I wanted to start a side hustle selling on Etsy. And I do. I have an Etsy shop. I don't talk about it much because it's what I like to call my side hustle. And I had wanted to have my own store for years and couldn't figure out the way. So I waited. And then the Lord made a way for me to do it and to sell the things that I wanted to sell. But when I first got my store up, I only had like 3 or 4 items, and I was just like, you know, all these people who are making all this money, they have hundreds of items in their store. But you can't despise the day of small beginnings, because the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. You know, it says in Zechariah. And so I might not have thought I had enough. I don't have enough, you know, inventory. But it was something that God called me to do. I believe it was something that God has called me to do. And so God has made the way. And this morning I packaged up a box to send out to someone in California of something that I sold. And I've actually sold quite a bit over the Christmas season. So regardless of what you think, it's really about what God thinks and what he's telling you you can do. So you can do it. Just go with what you got. And I just want to leave you with that. Once again, I'm Dr. Naima Johnston-Bush from The Refreshing Life with Naima, and our goal is to help you to live a life of exuberant joy, powerful prayer, and sincere gratitude. If this blessed you, I actually have this in book form, an entire workbook. You can pick it up on Amazon. It's called Go With What You Got, Dr. Nay's Guide, Develop Your Dream, Pursue Your Passion, and Accomplish God's Will for Your Life. And I am going to be teaching out of this book for the next at least 8 Mondays. So make it happen Monday. Thank you for joining me. If this message blessed you, please feel free to share it, because sharing is caring. And if you enjoyed it, replay viewers, feel free to give hearts. Hearts are always appreciated. And join me next Monday, right around this time, the evening time, I usually get on between 7 and 8, depending upon what else is going on during the day, to share. Tomorrow, I'm starting a new series as well called Refreshing Health Tuesday, where I'm going to be talking about my recent health battles and how I'm overcoming liver disease and God's healing, and how I knocked out diabetes and high blood pressure, and how I lost 80 pounds. Because remember, we're building a refreshing life, and a refreshing life is a holistic life in those 4 areas that I mentioned earlier. So I will talk at you tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing. And thanks for the hearts. This is Dr. Naima Johnston-Bush signing off, saying, have a refreshing life and go out and achieve your calling. All right? God bless you.